What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be taking a look at a game called World War III, which is a tactical FPS shooter that shares many similarities to the Battlefield franchise. It's an early access game that is clearly trying to appeal to the players that might have grown tired of the recent Battlefield games and to provide them with a more traditional experience that many players have grown to expect through the years. Now, right now, the game is in closed beta testing, but it will be going open beta for free-to-play users in March of 2022. So if you actually purchased the game back in 2018 or pre-ordered it in any way, you can actually play right now. And if you have any intention to play it, you can actually just buy the game for $15 if you don't want to wait for the free-to-play version. Now, because the game will be free to play, that means there will be purchasable microtransactions. If you want to unlock the weapons and the modifications that change the stats of the weapons, like suppressors, muzzle devices, grips, and stuff like that, you actually have to play out the game and level up your character and then unlock those weapons and use those guns to get those specific modifications. It's actually a pretty good carrot on the stick traditional FPS system. So although I checked out the game initially in 2018 and own a veteran version of the game, I was actually approached by the developers to do a sponsored stream on November 27th to check out the game on a weekend. However, I already played the game multiple days prior and I had full intentions to make this video that you're watching right now. So it was actually just a cool opportunity for me to get paid to play a game that I was already going to check out anyway. But I want to be clear and say that this video was not part of the deal, and I'm going to try to do my best to keep my bias under control. So let's get right to my impressions on the game. Thursday, November 25th, I excitedly booted up World War III to jump on and see how the game was shaping up after all these years in development. I was able to get into a few matches, and I was immediately impressed with the responsiveness of the gunplay. The time to kill was much faster than traditional modern Battlefield shooters, and it plays more similar to a hardcore mode that you'd expect in those titles, but with all the HUD and standard features. The game also features a battle point streak system, so you can call in radar, airstrikes, and armored vehicles and drones, similar to the Call of Duty series. And although I initially enjoyed the gunplay, I quickly noticed how odd the sounds of the weapons and the vehicles were. All the weapons just sound super flat, and I'm not too sure if this was intentional to simulate wearing contacts or something, or the audio profile of the game was just off. And like other early access titles, this game also needs some serious work in the vertical audio department. I was hearing footsteps all around me and I wasn't able to really place exactly where they were coming from, and this was honestly frustrating at times. Also, if you were driving an armored vehicle, the sound of the engine would just not make any noise most of the time, leaving you with this really strange death sensation whenever you're just shooting your guns and you didn't really hear anything else other than that. I believe the developers have already come out and said that the audio in general is, in quotations, bugged and is going to be reworked before the open beta, but either way, I found the sounds to be pretty weird but acceptable in most situations. After a few matches though, I was unfortunately greeted with the RPC server error code, and that honestly ended my session for the launch day. The servers were not up for the rest of the day, and the same story was on the Friday, the following day. I was able to get into a few matches in the morning, but then the servers just went down for most of the day, eventually coming back up around like 9 p.m. at night. So I'm sure that you're aware, these days, day one server faults are the immediate target of widespread criticism and skeptics. People who want a game to fail before it even starts, or in this case, starts again, are really eager to jump on that negativity around these issues, and it gets really explosive, or at least it was in my chat and on the social media sites that I was on, and it was honestly kind of bumming me out. The game at its core is actually really solid, and the gunplay and the weapon customization is some of the most extensive I've ever seen. And in fact, besides Tarkov, they provide the most weapon customization in any game I've ever played. From stocks, receivers, pistol grips, foregrips, handguards, muzzle devices, rail systems, tactical devices, barrel lengths, and even customized mag wells. It's actually pretty wild. Right now, not all the modifications are acquirable in-game, but most are actually just ready to go, and you can just start leveling up your weapon to unlock them. Apart from your character's level, each weapon has its own leveling system. The more you use the weapon, the more you'll level it up. The weapon experience is rewarded for simply using the gun during a game. If you capture a point, you get weapon experience. If you kill a tank, you get weapon experience just by playing and completing matches. That way, even if you're not the best killer, you can still contribute to your team by being a medic, resupplying, a driver of a tank, or something that contributes to actually winning the match, capturing points, and leveling your gear. I actually really like this system, to be honest, because it's different than other shooters where you have to actually get kills to level up the gun. You get something for contributing in a positive way to your team. Now, on top of the weapon leveling system, their customization for their skins is pretty crazy too. Like, you can put a weapon skin on a gun, just full blanket, or you can put a skin on each individual modification of a weapon. So if you have multiple skins, you can put one on your muzzle device, a different skin on your barrel, different on the foregrip, different handguard. It's pretty insane what you're actually able to do with that. You can also customize your character with a crazy amount of detail, from the tactical rigs, the legs, helmets, gloves, country flags, tactical patches, but unfortunately, most of these are actually locked right now and you can't get the battle pass or purchase them with the store, and then also your pre-order and veteran packages are currently not working. So the game is just kind of tempting you with all the cool stuff that you just really can't use right now. In terms of other customization, just like other FPS shooters, you have the ability to change an emblem and a banner, so whenever you kill somebody or get killed, you can show off different accolades. Now let's talk a little bit more about the loadouts. It uses a weight capacity system, which means you have the freedom to build loadouts pretty much any way you want. You have 3 different types of body armor classes and 2 different types of helmets. The heavier the body armor, the more weight it takes up, the lighter, the less. That means if you want to run 2 primary weapons, you can actually easily do that, but it's going to increase your character's weight, and that adds to the speed and the inertia while you're playing the game. And on the flip side, if you want to run a super light kit and be very fast for CQB for shotguns and SMGs, you can do that as well. Although I think the loadout customization is really cool, there's also a really big problem that I just think could be avoided, and that is the limitation on modifications. So on each gun, you have the ability to have an optic and a secondary canted optic, which is pretty cool because many games don't do that. However, for additional modifications, you can only choose 4. I don't like that much because it limits the room of creativity with the weapons, and I don't really understand why. For example, you can have a Vityaz with 2 optics, a suppressor, a grip, handguard, and stock. Seems pretty cool, right? But if you wanted to change out your 30-round magazine to a 20-round magazine, you have to replace one of your attachments that are already on the gun, like a suppressor or something like that. So it doesn't really make that much sense. Like, if you want to run a really cool Vityaz but bring an additional magazine of hollow points, you have to remove a tactical device or something on the gun already. So in my opinion, if the slot is empty, you should be able to use that space to add a modification. Obviously, you don't want to add like a bunch of tactical devices. That doesn't really make any sense. But if the slot is empty, I mean, I just don't see why not. Now, one of the biggest criticisms of Battlefield 2042 was their general lack of weapons. And World War III does a pretty decent job in the assault rifle department, but pretty similar to Battlefield in the other areas. So you have 8 different assault rifle options, 2 DMR battle rifles, 4 light machine guns, 3 different snipers, and the cool thing about the snipers are they're different calibers. So you have a 338, a 308, and a 402. You have 2 shotguns, a pump and a semi-automatic, 4 different pistols, 2 launchers, and 3 SMGs. The good thing about some of the other weapons that are not the assault rifles is it does make sense that they chose different weapons with different calibers. So it does actually give you a bit of diversity with your selection. So they're not all just shooting 5.56 or 308. Well, so it kind of makes sense, but obviously more weapons in a free-to-play game are going to happen because anytime they're going to release a new gun, that means more skins, more modifications, more things to unlock, and more time spent in the game. So this is very much preliminary, closed beta, open beta weapon selection. But that being said, in comparison to 2018, there really isn't any new selection, and I'm sure some people are going to be critical about that. Now, like Battlefield, you have the ability to choose a role with one of 4 combat packages. You have a med kit, ammo bag, equipment, and body armor bags. So, as you'd expect, most players are running the med kit because it's the most useful, so you can heal yourself and others around you. Ammo is the second most common, but honestly, I just see most players running around with the medical bag, and if they run out of ammo, they use their secondary rifle or pistol, or pick up the gun from the enemy that they kill. The body armor bag is something that I really never see, but that might be something that could be more important in the future. And just to comment on this, I suspect the med bag will get nerfed because it doesn't take long between dropping it on the floor and healing yourself to full HP. It's surprisingly fast, so I imagine they'll be changing that in the future. Now, each player also has a backpack, and I suspect most people currently playing World War III don't really use it very often. This can be used to carry multiple extra sights that can be used on pretty much any weapon, also multi-caliber suppressors, smoke grenades, underbarrel grenade launchers, and other tactical equipment like mini drones, but most of the cool things for the backpack are pretty late in the player leveling tree. This could be opened in the middle of combat by simply pressing I. So I'm kind of interested to see what I'm going to be doing with that in the future, but for now, I pretty much just use it for the little red dot that I have unlocked. If you pick up an enemy's gun, you can just like slap that on the rail system. Now, there are plenty of vehicle options in the game, from APCs, drones, remote helicopters, and battle tanks. And the cool thing about this is each vehicle can be completely customized in your Strike's loadout screen. From the cosmetics to the types of optics and weapons and features and equipment, it's got a pretty extensive selection, and you can even customize little things like your explosive drone. So I do like that about World War III, the creativity and just the depth with customization. It makes sense because they're going free to play, and one of the biggest ways to finance the game is going to be the cosmetics, and they really go crazy with it, but not in a bad way. Although I think it's a pretty cool take on the streak FPS system that you see in other video games like Call of Duty, there are certainly a few drawbacks. First, most of these streaks or strikes or whatever you want to call them, they're poorly balanced. Some cost way too many points and some are far too little. For example, there's a small tactical airstrike. It's not that useful, but it's cool at like damaging tanks or killing a couple players. It costs 4,000 battle points, where a deadly remote armored APC can cost 1750 points, and it's pretty crazy on its capability, like maneuverability on the battlefield and how much ammunition you get and how fast it kills people. So clearly there's a disparity between that. And also, if you have a tank or an APC in your strike selection and there's already too many on the battlefield, you're unable to use that vehicle, and most of these are going to be costing at least 4,000, 5,000 points. More often than not, whenever I was playing the game, I was not able to call my expensive vehicle at all during the match because other people called in cheaper ones and simply never died. In my opinion, there's just too many APCs and tanks available. And because most of these vehicles use a third-person camera, it's really hard to get close to them with C4 to explode them. And I found the launchers were pretty weak against them. You pretty much have to just call in an anti-tank strike on these vehicles, which is going to cost a lot of points, get into a vehicle yourself, or get pretty lucky with a bunch of your teammates shooting rockets at them collectively. I also played rounds where I just felt I couldn't get away from all the APC tanks that were gunning me down, and I was constantly dying to them. And I'm not gonna lie, that was really frustrating. Eventually, I spent some time just trying to hunt them down and putting down landmines and all sorts of different ways to destroy them, but I felt like I wasn't even contributing to the team, and I was dying to other tanks before I got to the tanks I was wanting to blow up. That being said, I think there's an opportunity for the developers to actually add an infantry-only tactical operation mode, and I'm sure many players like myself would enjoy that. But that being said, I gotta be honest, if you're in the driver's seat of a tank or an APC, it does feel pretty good because the amount of people you're able to kill is pretty crazy, so it's kind of a double-edged sword. Now, speaking of the game modes, there are only two game modes right now in World War III. You have Team Deathmatch and Tactical Operations. Team Deathmatch is pretty traditional, but they changed it up a little bit because it's a best of the three mode. It's really fun to level up your weapons, but if I'm going to be completely honest, it gets pretty stale really fast. The real fun in this game is with the 20 versus 20 Tactical Operation mode, which is basically just Conquest. Now, on top of the two game modes, you also only have 4 maps to choose from, and I was actually pretty bummed out about this because there isn't any new maps from when the game initially released in 2018. And in my opinion, it's one of the areas where the game lacks the most. I found myself stuck playing the same map 4 or 5 times in a row, and I eventually had to stop to deselect it from the matchmaking screen. Speaking of the matchmaking, it really isn't working well at all at the moment, and the developers have already made a public apology on their Twitter about that. There's lots of issues with players trying to connect into games, getting disconnected, unable to join matches not even starting with the correct player counts, and the biggest issue of them all, no autofill. When players leave your game, other players do not fill those roles. So this means once a team starts losing and people start dropping out, it becomes completely one-sided and it's just not fun to play. Now, although the developers have addressed all of these concerns publicly, it doesn't really take away from the fact that it's really killing this game's vibe and chances of success. At its core, World War III is a really fun game. I love the firefights, the action, the gunplay, and everything to do with the combat. It's really engaging and rewarding to level up your guns, try new modifications, build new loadouts, and eliminate your enemies. It's incredibly satisfying. Customizing and using the weapons is the best part about World War III, and that's a really good thing for a closed beta test. It just means this game has some legs and it can certainly improve in other areas. There's plenty of time and hope for this game to bounce back for a second time. If they can get some more maps, more game types like Rush or Domination, or anything else to keep some more players in the game, if they add autofill to the game type so when people are leaving, they're more fair, and if they can make that matchmaking more steady, I can honestly see players checking out this game more often. It would also be cool to see if they would allow players to host their own servers with a server browser, and it would also be nice to see 32 versus 32 player servers or even more with maps to support that. I also have to mention another big negative with World War III is the fact that all of the pre-order benefits and veteran packages are currently not working in the game. I'm not really too sure why this is the case. Maybe it's just because it's a closed beta test or something like that, but I've personally never played an early access game where that was actually the case, so it's a little bit weird. I'm sure lots of people are disappointed, especially if they paid more for cool cosmetic features. So in conclusion, World War III has had yet another rough start on the early access scene. The first 2 days of its closed beta testing certainly killed some of the marketing hype, and there seems to be some pretty serious matchmaking oversights even after all of these years. That being said though, I still think there's plenty of opportunity for World War III to shine in a free-to-play environment when their open beta test hits, if they can nail down some of these issues I discussed in today's video and provide players with more things to do in their game. What's important is the gunplay just doesn't suck, and I honestly think it's one of the best I've played in shooters in recent years. So that means there's a really good foundation, or should I say a second foundation, for the game to start from. Now, we as gamers need to wait to see what comes next. So either way, it's only $15 right now. It will be free to play down the road, so it doesn't really seem that bad for what we have right now. So, in my opinion, World War III can only get better from here. So, what is your thoughts about World War III? I'm eager to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section below. If you like this video, hit the like button. Sorry that you can't hit that dislike button anymore. It's a bit weird, I know. Share this video around with your friends, or consider watching my live stream Monday through Friday starting at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Twitch. A link to that will be included in the description box below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.